And when you get the YouTube up,
I'm going to be pulling it up right now.
what I found is when we're talking about it, waiting for it to start, it's actually already started. Oh, we have 33 subscribers on our YouTube channel. What I found is when we're talking about it, we're popular. Waiting for it to start. Yep. And it's up and going, and definitely caught the part about where I said we're talking about waiting for it to start. Technology. Love it.
I just saw it. I've got it up now.
Okay.
Good morning, CYMPO.
Morning, John.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
Norm, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Good.
I've been working at the town to try to get my video working, but we got a new Office 365 and it's apparently can't get video, but I'll survive. Just can't see my pretty smiling face.
We'll figure it out when that day comes.
Might as well get it figured out because it's going to be this way a while, I think.
I think so.
It'll be another minute here.
Yeah, so Frank's connecting the audio. Morning, Ian. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning.
John, good morning.
Morning, Chris.
And Frank, you got us?
I can hear you.
Excellent. We got you.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Allison, you want to run through a roll call?
Sure. Chairman Cherry,
Present.
Vice Chair Marbury,
Present.
Member Hanks,
He was there. There he is.
He's back.
I'm here.
Thank you. Member Davis,
Here.
Member Mattingly,
Here.
Member Ross, absent, Member Winnis,
Present.
and we have a quorum.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Anybody had a chance to look over the regular meeting minutes from May 14th and the May 21st special meeting minutes for the TAC. I did look them over myself. I didn't have any additions or comments, but I'm open to any discussion on that. If not, then I would certainly be looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Very good. How about a second?
Winnis seconds.
Very good. So we have a motion from Member Hanks and a second from Member Winnis for acceptance of the May 14th regular meeting minutes and May 21st special meeting minutes for the TAC. I will do a roll call for approvals. Vice Chair Marbury.
Yes.
Member Hanks.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Mattingly.
Yes.
Member Winnis.
Yes.
I assume Member Roth has still not joined us. Well, I can say you have a unanimous, I will vote yes as well. You have unanimous there, minus Member Roth, who's not present. So moving on to item 3 on the agenda, agency announcements and updates. Frank, you want to start?
We're just trying to get through the COVID issues right now. We've adopted our fiscal year 21 budget, and our roads and streets committee will meet in about 2 weeks, and we may start looking at if they want to move forward with any capital projects for FY21 yet, or if they still want to put them on hold due to the uncertainty in the revenues. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Very good. Member Hanks.
Yes, right now we have adopted our budget for next year. Currently, we've completed our annual chip seal program. It went real well this year. We're in the design phase of our CDBG project. We're hoping to go out to bid for the first of the year on that, so we can get construction going in the spring and winter. Other than that, we're just trying to get through the COVID issues.
Understood. Mr. Davis, how about you?
For Prescott Valley, I guess projects of regional significance, the Sunset Lane project got substantial paving down, and we look forward to having that project complete at the end of July. It's been a good 2-year partnership with the county. $6 million roadway improvement, transportation corridor. A second project of regional significance would be the Viewpoint Connector. Project's moving along well. Of course, that's a new alignment, but we're about halfway done with that, and we look forward to continued progress on that project. And next spring of 2021, that project being complete. That'll be it for Prescott Valley.
Very good, thank you. Ian, how about you? Still there, Ian?
Yeah, I'm here, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, we've got the Wilkinson Drive Flash Corsair project is underway. Wilkinson Drive was repaved from Larry Caldwell around the curve to just about where the new Corsair roundabout will come in, Corsair extension. So the paving is done there, but the alignment of the new extension is still underway, and then roundabout construction will begin on that shortly. So that'll connect that airport area over there and just make a shorter path for people. We've got some paving projects going along. Smoke Tree Lane was underway with some paving work, but I think they've patched and then pulled off because the contractor had some COVID stuff, so they'll kind of do a pause for a couple weeks and then they'll be back. But that'll be a repaving of Smoke Tree through the Prescott Lakes area. And then we do have like some chip seal and other pavement projects coming along, but they're later in the summer. So that's about all we have right now.
All right, very good. Thanks, Ian. John, how about you? If you can hear me, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just a couple here. ADOT's 5-year facility construction program looks like it'll be considered at the September State Transportation Board meeting and likely approved in October. And that's a departure from normal, due primarily to the reduction in revenues. So again, September considered by the board, and then October likely approval of the 5-year plan. We've got our ADOT COG and MPO guidelines manual that's being updated this year. It should be done by the end of 2020. Pretty good document, an effort by WSP. Our consultant is underway, and we'll be getting feedback from the COGs and MPOs on that throughout the summer and into the fall. Planning to programming, our P2P call for projects went out to our technical groups yesterday. We're considering, or we're continuing the same process for planning to programming pretty much as we did last year, with workshops scheduled again for October. So no real great changes there other than the program impacts due to the budget reductions. Just a word about our STIP. We use the electronic STIP. And this may not be relevant to everybody, but we're moving much more toward the e-STIP, the electronic STIP for all the COGs and MPOs, and we rely on that for our amendments, reviews, and approvals. So we're getting more familiar with that and working with that all the time. There will be a section in the updated COG and MPO manual on e-STIP as well. It's a little tricky to use. I'm still learning it, and we appreciate some patience on that as we're working with it. That's all I've got. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Still no Andy, it appears, so I'll give a brief update here. We have our Mint Wash bridge work. We're widening that bridge on Williamson Valley Road. That is ongoing. The contractor has drilled and poured foundations and piers and extended the head walls. That is proceeding nicely. We're really been working hard to try to get everything out of the wash bottom before monsoon season hits, and we think we've got it made at this point, which is great. So the next phase will be moving more to deck work and whatnot, where they're extending the deck on one side to get some additional width there. That is, of course, funded in part by HERF Exchange program, which we feel pretty lucky about that actually making it through before things got kind of held up in the air by our current pandemic. I've got Outer Loop Road. We're doing a stress absorbing membrane, and which is a rubberized chip seal, followed by a 2-inch overlay. That is starting up next week for the chip seal, and we should be paving for that come around the middle of July. And you know, it's roughly 5 miles worth of paving. That's a pretty big one for us. We are looking forward to seeing how that one comes out. We are working with Earth Resources. That's our contractor that we brought on board for it, and they're still kind of dipping their toe into some of the paving work, and you know, bought it over last year. So we've actually are very concerned about getting a nice smooth road on this. So what we've done is worked out a deal with Earth Resources where they're going to do a test section for probably about a half a mile, and we'll pause, run some smoothness testing on that, make sure they've got their rolling pattern set, and then move forward again if we can show that they're meeting spec. If they're not, we'll reconvene and figure out where we're messing up before we go land 10 lane miles of pavement and then look at each other. So kind of a new thing for us. I'm hopeful that we have something we're all proud of at the conclusion of that project. So, and it's outside CYMPO, but we've got Kirkland Hillside Road. That's 16 miles between the community of Kirkland over to Hillside, down on the way to the Baghdad mine. That is a project we'll be gearing up here in July as well. We're doing a hot in-place recycle process on that with Cutler. And I think Combs is the prime on that. And then it also includes fresh mat on top of that that all gets laid down together. It's a new process for us. We've been wanting to try it for, probably a decade if I had to guess, and kind of been looking for the right road to try it on, and this one seemed to fit the bill. So that's a pretty good sized project for us. And then lastly, much of our time has been consumed by Verde Connect project in the Verde Valley. We are nearing the finish line with regards to the final EA on that, and are hoping that we have a decision with regards to NEPA somewhere around the last week of July on whether this is going to move forward or not. If it does, we'll shift into high gear, get a grant agreement in place in August so that we can have the funding, the 25 million funding obligated sometime by the end of August. So we're under the wire with regards to the end of the federal year. So that is been stressful to say the least. We're having to work through a lot of public comment that we got in during the draft EA public comment period, which went from late April to late May. And it's been an experience, I will say that. So that's kind of the end of my updates. Don't see Andy on the call here, so we'll move on unless somebody has something further they'd like to pipe in with.
Dan, this is Ian. I just had one more thing.
Yes, go ahead, Ian.
I forgot to mention that we've had our contractor meeting and we're all ready to start the widening of the Willow Creek curve. So that obviously is a regional impact because there'll be a closure of Willow Creek between Deep Well and basically Perkins. But the traffic will be rerouted around 89A to 89 while that's going on. And that's part of that widening through the Dells with Antelope and all those new signals. So that's going to be going on here in the next few months.
Very good. And
that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Dan, John Letier's on for Andy. He put something in
John,
the chat.
can you hear us? You're muted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I had a little technical difficulty with some audio getting in this morning. Several of the projects that ADOT's been working on, the US 93 gap project, the 69 widening, those projects are kind of in a pause mode right now, waiting on Transportation Board action on funding. Right now, the State Route 69 Spring Lane intersection project is currently advertised. Bids are expected to open July 17th. Right now, the 89 at Road 1 North project is scheduled to advertise in mid-August.
Very good. I appreciate the update, John. Thank you. Anything further from anyone? Norm, did you have something?
No.
All right, very good. I'm going to move on to item number 4 then. Review, discussion, and possible action to recommend approval to amend the FY 2024 MTIP. I took a look at this. I know that last week Allison had sent it out asking people to take a look at it. Are there any thoughts or discussion items on this? It is a pretty significant change, I would say.
Yeah, it's robust to say the least. And thank you everybody for looking at it and sending us comments or questions. But if you want, Dan, I could run through kind of line by line here. Okay.
I think we should.
So I'm going to share the screen here. So in addition to the main part that we sent you with the spreadsheet, we're also updating the text portion of the MTIP, which is preceding the spreadsheet portion with all the projects. I'm going to scroll down here. So we did make some changes here just to update the funding amount and to clarify the fiscal years. And hopefully you all can see my screen. Made some additions here for the CARES Act funds. Obviously didn't know that was going to be a thing when we approved this last year. And what we're thinking we're going to do is for the next update, because we are going to have additional transit projects coming back. We're going to have to bring that back probably in August. And we'll probably just go ahead and consider doing a brand new one to clean all this stuff up and to get rid of some of that FY20 stuff that's still sitting there because it's not applicable anymore and those funds have been expended. So I just wanted to show that we're making some additional changes in the text language, and I think that's most of it here. Here's a little bit more talking about the regional transit again. Still keeping all the same performance measures that ADOT has. And I believe that's most of it here. Yeah, that's all of it for that. So now I'll go to the meat of it, which is the spreadsheet portion. Okay. So, can you guys see the spreadsheet? Yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so we'll just kind of go down project here. So, based on our last discussion, we drafted this up, and obviously for today's discussion, we had originally had a lot more money here on the 69, and it was just kind of parked there for construction. We did get a request from ADOT project manager and working with Alvin to add some additional design money. So it sounds like we're all moving forward with Ian. You need to take that JPA back to council, correct?
Yes, I do. Yep. And it's on for the 28th, I think, and we let ADOT know.
Okay.
Yeah, our attorney said they had to do that.
Okay. So there's really no change to the county or city part, but they are asking that you sign it again because we're amending the agreement to reflect the additional 100,000. And Dan, you've got that on for county board for the 15th, correct?
That's correct, as does Lynn Whitman. It's going to be two separate items since it's technically two separate agencies approving it with the Flood Control District Board and the Board of Supervisors. So they are both on consent for the 15th.
Okay, and we're doing the same as well for the CYMPO Executive Board for the 15th as well. So that's what this 100,000 here is. We moved some money around based on our work group discussion over to adaptive signals and the additional funding for the road worth signal. So we go down, that's the next project here. So we've added the STBG funds in here to the 185, I believe is what we had there. So that brings that up to 248. And then we are showing the additional contribution from the town of 63,000 that council approved. And then we also were notified that there was an additional 20,000 coming from ADOT going into design for that. So this should all be now accurate for advertisement in August that John referenced. So next is LTAP training, and we had been showing local match on there. John Wennis was kind enough to confirm there is no local match on the LTAP training, so we've deleted that line. So it is 100%. And I know Norm, the town's taken advantage of this quite a bit. So if anybody else is interested, there is money there for that, and it's 100%. So if there's LTAP trainings, we can pay for it.
Yeah, we do the same. We certainly like to take advantage of it when there's opportunity. And I think there's been a good experience on our end with a lot of stuff, especially for like flagger training and things like that.
Yeah, it comes in really handy. And if you can get it for free, that's even better. Right. So the next one, we had sort of a confusing situation where we had the 2045 and the 2050 RTP listed together. This money is expended, but we just made it its own line item and renamed it. So it's just the 2045, but it is FY20. That project's done. And this is part of cleaning up the whole document moving forward, that would go away. But keeping this its own, and then we made a separate 2050 RTP further down in the document. And then we modified the project name on here because we originally had programmed that as a project assessment, and we advertised it as an alternative selection. So to accurately reflect that on 169 as well as Robert Road. So that's the only change on that. No change in money. We changed the money last time around for the additional 5,000 on the 169 to cover the Kittleson fee. And then we had originally had just parked here regional transportation studies. So we've moved all that money around into specific projects, which are going to be at the bottom of the document. So just showing that in red will be gone. And then the regional safety campaign, or the anti-distracted driving, we did get our quote back, and it was 1,000 over what we had budgeted, mostly because originally we were using Facebook, but Facebook, this is the fun part, they basically block us as a political ad. So we're using YouTube format instead, and that basically was $750 more. So we just bumped it to 46 to cover that cost. We are in the process of doing the professional services agreement with Sparklight Advertising, formerly Cable One. And we would anticipate having that ready for the board to approve signing the contract on the 15th. We should see hopefully the final agreement by the end of the week. Let's see. So we originally last year talked about doing transportation education, public outreach, like where does your money come from? How do your roads get fixed and things like that. We ended up moving the money around last year for a variety of reasons. And we're not moving forward on that. We got plenty of stuff going on, especially COVID and all the other things. So what we're looking at, because of how we're doing our planning studies or alternative selection reports, when as an MPO, if you expend more than $750,000 in a fiscal year, you pay for an independent audit. And there are a couple of years where we're anticipating, based on what we've got programmed, that we will have to do that. And we've never had to do it before because we've just given our money to ADOT to do a big construction project or design. So we're proposing that we move this into a separate line item for single audits to be able to pay for that. And then we bumped up here in admin. We took some from this FY21. So not, FY22 is the first year that we think would be a single audit. 21, we just took the extra money and put it into admin just in case. A variety of things, planning or whatever. And then the money that we had programmed in future years that was set for HERF exchange, which we're not sure the fate of that total yet. I'm just kind of waiting on what happens from the state board, but that won't be until probably October. We decided to take that and move it into our planning documents that we had talked about before. Okay, now we get into all the new stuff. So the first one here is the 69 Willow Creek Glassford Adaptive Signal Planning Project. And working with, I've been kind of bouncing around on this, McDOT, Maricopa County DOT. They actually worked on the DCR and the construction side. I found out yesterday, 2 days ago, that MAG is the one that actually did the planning on it. So I have a request into my MAG contacts to hopefully get a copy of that scope of work and what their RFP was. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that. So if the board approves this on the 15th, we potentially could have, if I get that document sooner rather than later, that we could have an RFP advertisement ready to go by August. Probably give that a month to advertise. So we could have a September selection. We would need to have probably a special meeting of the TAC to review those proposals and to rank them, which means we potentially would have a contract in October and an NTP. My real question is, until I see that scope or the RFP, I'm not sure what the length of the project would be. I just penciled 12 months. It seems like it's rather complicated, so it might take a while, but I don't really know We've not done anything like this in the past. So that would be my guess, is that by October NTP, give it 12 months. So the following fall, we would be done and be able to, literally hand over to, ADOT, town and the city. Here's what you need to do for your cabinets to make this adaptive signal technology work. And then we could talk about future years of, an STVG to pay for that. Right now, I'm not showing anything for that, but that's still a possibility. The other project that kind of rose to the top from our work group discussion was the 89A eastbound dual on-ramps. We've added that in there. It's listed as an alternative selection report. I know we've got issues with lane drop and requirements and getting into Larry Caldwell, so it might be a little more technical evaluation. So we, rather than trying to split up $75,000 of SPR, we just put it all into that project and we'll see what happens as far as quotes. But that one can actually go through the on-call and do a task order. So that could be quick. So if the board approves that on the 15th, we could actually have that project up and running in August. Again, we'll have to, do a TAC special meeting so we can review those proposals and rank them and then move forward. But once you make that selection as the TAC, we can move forward and sign a task order. The board did approve that. Okay, moving on. So here's the 2050 region. FY24 would be our getting into our 5th year of where we would need to adopt a new one. So we programmed money for that in the future. And then again, based on discussion from work group, we programmed the Great Western Corridor Study update. And for folks who may be watching on YouTube, and to remind everybody on the call, we originally did that study, was that 2008, Dan, something like that, when we started that. Yeah, and it was under very different population projections and very different land use assumptions at the time, with the 19 sections of Cavan property having basically a plat and potentially going to the city of Prescott, and all that changed with the Great Recession. So we have a system to system traffic interchange. If you think like something like the 101 and I-17 coming together, maybe not as large, but something in that realm where it's ramps connecting and grading, and you wouldn't necessarily get off on a ramp and hit a light or anything like that. That probably is a little excessive for what we are looking at today. So reevaluating that and kind of nailing down not just the final alignment, which I think is good, but the right-of-way requirements. And Norm brought this up, and I think it's a really good long-range planning thing to look at. Hopefully we could then maybe purchase or set aside if development does come through there. If we're in lot split situation, I'm not sure there's a lot we can do outside of trying to actually purchase that right away. And that would remain to be seen where that would come from. Dan. But that would just get us back on track with that connection. And then it does tie into, Frank, the Chino Valley extension on the east side of town, which is an important part of that. So I don't know if that includes the whole thing, but we did program or put in about $196,000 federal, and that's the part to look at, not the bottom line necessarily, because we are showing local match there. Unless you all want to give us extra cash, then we can advertise it at 230,000, but it would be more of the 190,000 range. And I guess our question to everybody on the call from the TAC perspective is, do we think 190,000 is enough to get that done? And we can come back to that in a minute. I'm almost through all these projects. We talked about potential of a 69 corridor plan, which would look at widening the whole length, basically Spain all the way to the city to make it consistent, but incorporating into that wildlife crossings, cost estimates, right-of-way, access control, any environmental impacts outside of the wildlife, all of that. And then obviously these in 23 and 24 can change to whatever it is you want. This is just based on what I heard and what I wrote down from our discussion. And then FY24 adding the 89A widening plan, which I know is something that Alvin has been very high on. We're seeing traffic growth on 89A, especially in the between Glassford and 89 section, being tremendous and getting almost to the point where 69 is. So the benefit of 89A is what it's designed for is as a freeway capacity. Typically that's an 80,000 ADT before you're maxed out. So we do have time on that one, which is why I put it out in FY24. And then again, the single audit, we're anticipating potentially in 22, 23, and 24 that we would have to pay for a independent auditor to come in and go through our stuff for those years. And then we were anticipating that we may have about $5,000 of differentiation with our account balance at ADOT because the obligation authority was different than what we had been programming. I think I mentioned that last time. So we're showing that here. That may or may not actually happen. So that 5,000 could eventually pop to somewhere else. We've had significant cost savings by working at home and not traveling. I mean, our CYMPO mobile is basically sitting in the parking lot. So we're not paying for oil, we're not paying for gas, we're not paying for hotels, we're not paying for any of that stuff. So that may shake itself out, but just to be safe, we put that 5,000 here in case we need it. So I guess with that, you guys have any questions or comments or ideas on moving things around different than what we've proposed here?
I don't, Chris. I think it's a good proposal moving it forward. And obviously there are some things there that can have some flexibility that are out, 2, 3, 4 years, but obviously others may have different opinions than me. So I'd love to hear them.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments if I could.
Certainly, Norm, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, you skipped over the 5310, which is, I think, what, page 5? I was just curious why you have the mobility management in this MTIP document and it's not in the transit section.
Yeah, that's a good point. We probably should move that to the transit page. I will highlight that so we can move that. It does belong on the transit portion, so I will make a note of that.
Okay.
Good point.
Mr. Chairman, I have another comment for the TAC group. I think we've done a good job that we've got done with our 2045 transportation plan, a public document that had recommendations. We follow those recommendations. So I think we've done our job, and Chris has done a good job putting in a schedule. We've talked the last couple TAC meetings about priorities. I think we've done a good job of putting it in there. I guess my comment in short was this document's confusing to anyone that doesn't live with it like we do as a TAC. My recommendation would be to get rid of all of the changes if we approve it today as a TAC and present it to the executive board without all the highlights, the if-thens and moves and all the like. Just say this is the document we have approved for board consideration and approval.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, Chris, do you have a feeling as to how the board would receive that? Do you think they're going to want to see where changes occurred, or do you think they're just willing to take the tax recommendation?
I'll give Chairwoman Orr a call and see what she wants to do. I like the idea of having it clean because this is the most complicated amendment we've ever done.
Right.
and in the effort of transparency, that's why we've got it this way for you guys today. So I'll give her a call and talk to her and see if she wants to leave it like this, or if she wants, the board to see a clean copy, and I can still run through all those changes and list them out in a bullet rather than having it like this, because it is daunting to say the least.
Right. Good point, Norm. I like it.
That's all my comments. Thank you.
Anyone further? Yeah. Chris, are you going to add anything else?
I would just say I want to revisit do you think 196,000 is enough for the Great Western?
I'm not entirely sure to what level we're going to be able to do things on that. It was a very expensive project originally, I think, but
Yeah.
there's a ton of information for a consulting firm to, look at and absorb and try to, pick out what is best to move forward from it. It's we don't have a huge pot of money here to play with, but I think it's something that if we go out for some proposals on and prices come in high, or if you want to reach out to a few, agencies that you know have interest, you can ask them off the record and just see if we're in the right ballpark for getting something of value. If not, we have time to revisit that within the next year.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment, tack on what you said. This is an important regional project for all of our quad cities. Looking at this corridor and reserving that corridor, we're seeing that lot splitting going on out there. My recommendation might be, yes, we did a significant study, in 2008. I think it's time to look at doing a study that would say the corridor is fixed, guys. We don't need to look anymore. Let's move forward with a study that says, what's the current value of right-of-way? Do a study that says this is what the cost is. Here's the right-of-way. Let's start getting a document that says when you start spending the bucks, here's what the legal descriptions are, and this is what you could expect to pay for it. State Land has commented in the past too, they would like to be engaged with our regional roadway planning. If they're coming to the table, let's give them a document that says, hey, quite a bit of this, obviously is running up your section line. We want to reserve it for transportation for the value of your interest, State Land. So I think a document like that could prove important. We don't need to study another corridor. We need to move forward with this corridor. And I would like to think the scope could include that.
Good points, Norm.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Norm just said. The only additional part on the scope then, what Norm just said makes a lot of sense, and I think the 190 fits, would be reevaluating that system to system TI. And what does that look like as a regular TI, or is there some other option there? Or is what we came up with before still good? I think that would be the other part of the scope, outside of getting those right-of-way descriptions and cost estimates.
Chris, if respectfully, I disagree about not looking at the system to system. This area is going to continue to grow. I've lived in Deserto my whole life. I never would have guessed a system to system would be throughout the valley. It's been in my lifetime. That will come in horizon, maybe not in my lifetime. But the study did talk about a phased approach. That was how AECOM approached it, was ultimately be a system to system. Let's move forward with the small diamond interchange, or local access, then a diamond interchange, then the system to system. That's all in the study.
All right. Well, I'd say, based on that, I think the number is pretty good then. I feel good about it.
In fact, John Wennis has mentioned in the past, ADOT has done similar studies, very similar to a corridor study like that. Let's look at the right-of-way. We stopped short of the environmental, but I think it's important that we do a document that tacks on to the significant effort in 2008 that says, yes, do you need to tune up the EA? We're going to have to use federal dollars. We need to start buying right-of-way to make sure we buy it right with the federal requirements. I think that's where the next study takes off, is taking a look, what's the next step, guys? You know, EA tune-up, identifying, you know, legal descriptions, identifying right-of-way costs, and putting that in a document that we can actually use and say, okay, public, this is what we're trying to reserve for all our communities. This is what we're trying to do, Ada. Where's the money at? And it hopefully will scope it for us.
All right. Thanks, Norm.
So the only other thing I'll add, Dan, is I mentioned it briefly earlier, but the transit page here
Yeah.
is we'll need to bring that back. ADOT has done preliminary awards for FY21, and so we need to add those in once they get final. Those are not final yet, and same thing for the 5211 for the other regional capital operating and admin. They also have a preliminary, but they do not have a final. So we'll bring those back, planning for August. That way it's in there, but prior to the federal fiscal year, October 1. So they can receive. That'll be a separate one that comes back. And but for right now, we're focusing on that federal state funded project thing.
Okay.
And then I did note here as we were talking, we had also put on here the development and initiation of regional transit system using CARES Act funding. We'll move that to the transit page as well.
So noted. John Wennis was having trouble with his mic and audio. I don't know if I recommended maybe try calling in on a phone, but if
yeah, Mr. Chair, I called in and I'm able to hear now. Can you hear me on my phone?
Yes, we can, John. Did you have something
Okay.
you wanted to add as part of the Great Western discussion or something else, perhaps?
Well, I just had a question for Chris on that first project listed on the tip, CYDOT 13-22, the State Route 69, safety and capacity improvements. Was the money shown for FY21 for STBG CYMPO, was that construction or design money? I just I had it a couple different ways on my record, so I wasn't sure what that is.
Yeah.
If you can maybe just define that again.
Sure. Originally, it was programmed as construction money, and as the project number will tell you, we programmed that in fiscal year 13. So it's been around a while. But with the change requested from ADOT project management, we've changed that to design. So it'll be 100,000 for design. Now the other part here is the FY20, the 1.3 million and 8.7 million in FY21. Those will potentially change depending upon what the State Transportation Board does at their meeting in September/October. So this is what's in the 5-year program currently. We anticipate that to change, but I don't know what it's going to change to.
Certainly, I would think that 1.3 is going to move at the very least.
Right. Yeah, because that's for right of way and utility.
Right.
So,
Right, and those were deferred to a later year as well as construction, if I recall.
So you just don't know which year they're going to get bumped to. Sure. They will get deferred. It's just a matter of where. So we're holding off on changing that one. We will most likely need to bring that back at a future date. But if we look at for next fiscal year or next calendar year, looking ahead 6 months, when we redo the MTIP entirely, that by then we'll have this sorted out.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Other than that, I think, the transit discussion is appropriate, and we'll of course work with CYMPO on getting in any CARES Act funding into the TIP where it's required. I know there's some stipulations that say, if it's CARES Act funds for operating expenses, they don't need to be included in the TIP. But there's some other conditions where, you know, if you're paying for capital expenses, for substantial functional, locational capacity changes, then those do need to be put in the tip. So we'll work with CYMPO on getting those changes made as needed.
All right, very good. Any further comments or discussion?
I'd say the only other thing we had, Dean, we did go through quite a bit here, and the page I have on the screen right now is the historical programming of the STP/STBG. So we've cleaned that up and now showing what we're putting our money towards going forward. And ensure that we updated all the things that had occurred in the past and finished that all up. This page right here, potential future planning study, that was something that we took from our 2040 plan. So we can just delete this page entirely. It's outdated and we don't really necessarily need it anymore. This was to tie to the original line item that we had about future planning studies from the 2045. And this was to help that out. We don't need it anymore. So we can just delete that page. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I had one more comment.
Yes, Norm, go ahead.
I made the comment about, you know, this is a confusing document if you don't live with it like us TAC members do. Chris, I might ask that if it's really not a problem, if we can get it reduced down, is that at times when you add something to the back and you've got a 5 or 6 page document, you know, you have to go to the back. If you look on the last page where you have the payback for ADOT obligation authority, you're back to FY21. I guess what I'd like to see in the document is all the FY20 that drop off, they be listed first. The FY21 be grouped, the FY22 be grouped, the FY23 be grouped, to where there's a succession of, as you go through the pages, you don't have to flip back to page 1 that something got inserted. Could you rearrange that just for better clarity for the public and maybe even the executive board?
Yeah, I think so. We can do that. The goal would be when we adopt a brand new one, or we drop that FY20 entirely and only have the current year forward. In fact, when we adopt a new one, it'll be FY22. So the 21 will actually all go away as well. That does have to be advertised and have a public comment period per our public involvement plan. So that'll be a little more in depth. But when we do that, Norm, we will for sure make it so it's all your 21s, all your 22s, all your 23s. And this is the curse of sticking with the same document over a longer period of time. When things change, it gets pretty jumbled, and I agree. So we will organize these appropriately as best we can now, but for sure when we do a full brand new tip, that will be taken care of.
Thank you. It won't be as much fun flipping through all the pages, but I think it'll have a better sense of order for people's understanding. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, we just want to keep you guys on your toes.
All right. Any further discussion? I am looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion, this is Norm Davis, to approve the amending the FY 2020-24 Metropolitan Transportation Planning Improvement Program and Word document as presented with comments from the TAC.
Second.
Is that a second from Member Hanks?
Yes.
All right, very good. We have a motion to approve the FY 2024 MTIP. Motion made by Member Davis, seconded by Member Hanks. I will do a roll call vote here. Just to make it clear as to who's voting how. We'll start with Vice Chair Marbury.
Yes.
Member Hanks.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Mattingly.
Yes.
And Member Winnis.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes as well, to make it unanimous. I don't believe John has proxy for Andy, is that correct?
That's correct, my understanding.
Okay, very good. All right. Very good. Allison, do you have what you need there? All right, very good. Thank you. We don't have anything else on the agenda. I wanted to ask very quickly to see if you know what the plans are, if they have been discussed about the Rural Transportation Summit.
So the Rural Transportation Summit is canceled.
Okay, all right.
Uh,
Are they going to try to do a virtual version, or are they just canceling it altogether?
So we just had a COG and MPO directors meeting a couple days ago, and we had that discussion, and we decided to just go ahead and just cancel straight across.
Okay.
The larger benefit of the Rural Summit is the connecting with elected officials, and really looking at trying to push potential, either policy changes or legislation. And we basically came to the point that, doing a virtual thing probably isn't going to help that. So we decided to just go ahead and cancel, but it will be for the following October in 2021, same location at the Auction Casino by the city of Maricopa.
Right.
So hosts would still be Suncor, MPO, and Central Arizona Governments.
All right. Are you planning on advising the executive board of that, as well as, I know our board probably wouldn't object to hearing. I think if you let Supervisor Brown know, he probably can make them aware, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of our board has already made reservations for the hotel.
I believe all of the Yavapai County board members have already registered. I think they registered day one. So Irene Higgs, Suncorder director, said that she was going to be reaching out to the people that did register. So I'll make sure Supervisor Brown knows for sure, and that our board knows.
Sounds good.
And it sounds like pretty much everything has either been canceled or moved, except for roads and streets. And I'm doubting that is still going to occur as well, given the numbers we're seeing
Right.
and the direction they're going. So I personally canceled mine. Daniel's still potentially for him. I think it could be a good benefit if it does happen, but he may decide as well to not attend that, and it may not be up to us.
Right. That's right. Okay. Very well. I appreciate the feedback on that. And with that, unless somebody has anything else that's burning questions or something, I'm going to adjourn.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have one request, if I could, just a request. We do have a road we're looking at that has some dust control issues, so if anyone has any experience with dust control products, if they could send me an email or reach out to me offline, I would appreciate it.
We certainly, we use a dust palliative, and I will have Verl Cook of my office reach out to you. I'll send an email.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, we are hereby adjourned, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Independence Day holiday weekend. So please be safe, and we'll see you all later on. Thank you much.
All right,
Have a good day, everybody.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.